Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm doing something a little different today, and I'm hoping this works out because I'm not sure how to do this, but I'm trying to do this with the OBS software to show you what's going on the desktop and then try to fly into the game. So let's see if this works. So there's been a lot of talk about VR and performance, and I'm always asked what my system is. I have an i5 9600K. I have 32 gigabytes of PC 3000. I have an EVGA Gaming Black Edition 2080 Super video card. I'm running off of an SSD, a 1 terabyte SSD. I have Z390 Asus motherboard. That's pretty much it for the system specs. I'm running Thrustmaster gear. There's this program. So people are asking me how I'm recording my video and having it show up at 1920 by 1080 instead of at that weird resolution. Let me see if this works, if I can drag this over there and it shows up on the screen or not. Okay, it actually is. So there's this program within your Oculus. This is for Rift, and Rift S in particular. It's called the Oculus Mirror EXE. So this window I have right here is a 1920 by 1080 window. I have it, scrunched down so it's not gigantic. I mean, I could stretch it if I want to, but I don't want to. I use this Oculus Mirror. I created a shortcut. Properties. So basically, you go to... Why isn't it showing up on my OBS screen? Okay, hopefully you get it. If you aren't, I don't know why you wouldn't. Let me move this little mirror back over to the other screen. There it is. It's showing up now. There's just a delay. Okay. So, C program files, Oculus support / Oculus diagnostics. And then beyond that, no, that's the start. I'm sorry. The target is Oculus Mirror EXE, and that is in program files, Oculus support, Oculus Diagnostics, and under Oculus Diagnostics is Oculus Mirror.exe. I created a shortcut, I put it on my desktop, and then at the end of that shortcut, after those parentheses, I put minus size with a capital S, space, 1920, space, 1080. And what that does is I just click that and run that once before I start recording. And it creates this little window up here that keeps track of whatever the Oculus Rift is doing. And that is part of how I capture at 1920 by 1080. And then what I have to do beyond that is in the OBS software, and I tried showing this before and it didn't seem to show up on the screen, so I don't think I can show the OBS window while I'm recording the OBS. And if I can, I don't know how. But anyways, I've created a DCS video capture, and under the video capture parameters is mode, capture specific window, and then window is the next drop down. And in that window, you can find everything from DCS updater utility, Oculus client, whatever's running right now. But what you want to choose is the Oculus Mirror EXE Oculus Mirror, because that is going to tell it to record this window, which I've created over here with the Oculus Mirror shortcut with the command line parameters telling it 1920 by 1080. So that is how I'm recording at 1920 by 1080. So next, for VR performance, is the Oculus Tray Tool. You're going to want to Google that. I don't remember where I got it. I Googled it. I found it. Somebody recommended it, and I've been using it since. So this Oculus Tray Tool, you start it up. I can go to View and Edit Profiles. Under my profiles, I have War Thunder, I have DCS, and I have Steam stuff. So for DCS, you can create a profile. I set the game app DCS. I change my super sampling. Think of super sampling as your pixel density. So 1.7. I like 1.7. I don't see a difference. I read somewhere that going beyond 1.7 doesn't really do anything but screw the game up. I kind of believe that. I could go down to 1.5 actually. I think 1.5 might actually be a little bit better, but I've stuck with 1.7. So ASW mode, off. There's an option for 45 FPS auto or off. I prefer off. That locks your frames and doesn't let you get above 45, I believe it is. I'd rather have the more frames if I could. So CPU priority, default, normal, above, and high. I left it at default. I've tried high. It's done nothing for me. And then basically you just choose the EXE path where your DCS is. And from there, I think there was an option in here somewhere that I told it to make the noise. Like there's an audible cue. So anyways, close that. Now, in the open, in this outside of the profiles, this tells any game that I run that I don't have a profile for to do super sampling at 1.7, ASW mode off, field of view mirror, don't know what that does. Voice commands are disabled because you can use voice commands if you wanted to. I don't know what this is, I don't know what this is, and I don't know what that is. I don't really care. And basically, I think under advanced, yeah, it'll do all kinds of other stuff. But again, this is how I'm using it, and this is how I prefer to use it. You can have it start with Windows, and these are the game settings that I'm using. So let's switch now and see if this does this seamlessly for my video to bring us into DCS. And for DCS, I use the DCS Updater Launcher GUI utility. That is how I've been able to get in here and change from the stable version to the beta version so I can use the F16. And it also has a couple little flags in here, like launch DCS, it says launch VR on or VR off.
Game
so
launch detected.
If I want to play without VR, I don't have to start with my headset on, go into DCS, uncheck the box for VR, and make it go back. These little command line parameters work rather well, which is pretty cool. Now, I'm going to get rid of this display capture, and it should kick me over into DCS. Aha! I figured something out, guys. Imagine that. So, let me get my little controllers here. Visor down. Let's go into DCS. So, here are my settings. Oh, I gotta Alt-tab my mouse back into here. I'm using two monitors on top of that, so it can be kind of cumbersome. There we go. So, these are my settings in DCS that I use, that I prefer. Textures, high. Terrain textures, high. I've taken regular textures and put them on medium, and it hasn't made a huge difference, but it seemed to smooth things out a little bit. You can play with that and tell me what you think. People say turn off MSAA and SSAA, and at times it has been a performance hog, but here's the weird thing. I'm going to leave them on for a minute, and you see what all my other settings are. 1024 for the cockpit displays, depth of field off, lens effect off. I have flat only for shadows. Anesiotropic filtering 16, flat for terrain object shadows. I don't know what global illumination is, so I leave it off. Clutter and grass, don't give a shit. I turn it down. Trees and visibility, 50%. I'm good with that. Preload radius, crank that if you have 32 gigabytes of memory, because it's memory. From what I understand, from what I've seen in other videos and read other places, this is memory dependent, not GPU dependent or CPU dependent. So crank it up if you have the extra memory. If you only have 16, put it down. Chimney smoke density, I turn that down because chimney, like smoke in general, lags in this game hard. Gamma, that's going to be personal preference. I don't think it has anything to do with performance. So, we go to VR. Notice my pixel density is down to the lowest possible setting you can go at, because we're using the Oculus Tray Tool to handle super sampling. So think of super sampling and pixel density as the same exact thing. It's going to make life easier for you. That's just the easiest way to look at it. So I'm handling this option within the Oculus Tray Tool outside of DCS. That's the easiest way to describe it. Instant action, Persian Gulf, free flight. So I've spent hours I can go in there right now and I could turn the MSAA off and the FSAA or whatever those two are. I get those two confused all the time in terms of remembering what the other one is. But I can go in there and turn them off right now and go back to this, and it's not going to seem to make much of a difference. And I know others have said it does. So since I have ASW off, if you notice, my frame rate counter is above 40, which is nice. Okay, and I don't have sound in the F16. Hold on. I'm going to fix this. This is very annoying. There we go. Now we should have sound in the F16. So, I think everything looks great. Looks like I'm bouncing around to 38 a little bit, between 38 and 40. Not bad. I've given up on trying to achieve a consistent anything over 40 because I just don't think it's possible. You know, I've seen people on groups and on forums and whatnot sitting there saying, oh, I can run DCS and I get a consistent 90 frames per second. I'm going to call bullshit. I want to see a video that has this frame rate counter right here at a pegged 90 FPS. I don't think it's possible. I have an i5 9600K at stock speeds, and the second fastest video card in the world, the 2060 Super, and the 2080 Ti is only at best, I think, 15 to 20% faster than a 2080 Super. And my i5 9600K, remember, DCS doesn't take advantage of extra cores and whatnot. It's a single-threaded thing. So my i5 9600K is almost, if not as good as a 9700K i7 in terms of single-threaded performance. And it works rather well. Therefore, I don't think there's a huge difference going to an i9, or I would have done it. Now, there are guys, I just got some micro stuttering. Not sure why. That doesn't happen very often. It might be because I'm recording too, and I had multiple things open. But anyway, I don't think an i9 and a 2080 Super or 2080 Ti is going to run this at a solid 90 FPS. Again, if it does, I would love to see it, and I will eat my words. I have no problem with that. That's just, with what I have, it's considered a medium range system because it's an i5, but it's, you know, crossing over into high range, I would say, because of the performance of the i5 9600K combined with the 2060 Super and the 32 gigs of memory running off an SSD. Like, there's nothing I can't play that doesn't play excellent on this thing. VR is the only different or hoggish program I think that I run out of anything. All the VR games run really well, super smooth, awesome. But again, VR, it's just not optimized, man. And I think I've been in here for hours triggering things on back and forth and back and forth, back and forth, and very few things make any difference. It just seems that way to me, at least on my system. I don't know, others' mileage may vary, but I'm just not seeing a big difference by turning on that MSAA or the FSAA, turning it on and off. I've seen more of a difference going from high textures to medium textures, for sure. And the pixel density is the number one thing that will just completely shit on your day when it comes to this game in terms of performance. And I've seen other people say, I can run 2.0 pixel density all day long without a problem. And I do that, and it becomes a stuttering mess. You know, I can't look down without seeing shuddering and, you know, like just bip, 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 you know. Terrible. I think what I'm running right now is the best balance between visual quality and performance. And again, I could do a little bit better, and I think I may. I may go back to 1.5, because what I'm seeing right now is running really well. As you see, I have a pretty consistent 40 plus, 40 to 42, 41 FPS, and I'm seeing just very small micro stutters every once in a while, you know. It's enough that I notice it's there and I don't want it, so I'll have to tweak it a little bit more. But I run 1.5 most of the time anyway. I think the 1.7 is what's causing this right now. But again, it's going to be based on your system. Everybody's system's a little bit differently. You're going to have to play around with this and see what works best for you, is what it comes down to. But I think it looks great right now. I think it's working rather well. Let's turn off that before anybody cries about it. Nobody likes labels. Personally, I don't have a problem with them. I need the labels, to be honest, in most cases. I just don't see that good, especially for air-to-air stuff. I don't know how people spot anything in VR. I know they make a couple headsets that are higher resolution than my Rift S, but my God, I can't understand how those things can even perform. Because like the Rift S, you know, you see what we're getting, 40 FPS, the same system. I can crank out of this right now and go back to a 2D screen at 3840 by 1080, 144 hertz, and you know, get 100 plus FPS, not 40. And no stuttering, you know, no visual issues at all. So. But again, VR is addictive because of the depth perception, because you really feel like you're in there. And I'll admit, moving my head around in VR is 100 times smoother than moving it in the Track IR. And it's hard to explain, but Track IR is freaking smooth. It really is. It's really nice. And if you have Track IR 5 and you've never tried VR, you're never going to be disappointed. You know what I mean? You're never going to know the difference. But having done VR now, and now I know I can just kind of turn my head naturally and see everything naturally and not have to look at the screen changing, but my view is changing as I turn my head, if that makes sense, more than a 2D panel. And that is, there's something to be said about that. That's the coolest part of VR, I think. Especially, and then visually tracking a target up close in dogfighting, I think is a little bit easier in VR than it would be in Track IR. But again, others' mileage may vary. People feel differently about different things. And we all like what we like. But that's how I'm achieving, number one, recording at 1920 by 1080 in VR, and not that weird vertical screen that you get, which is like a sliver in the middle of a screen, which is what you normally get in VR. I don't know why it does that either. I think that's just how Oculus decides to do things. But that 1920 by 1080 screen definitely makes the videos a little bit more enjoyable to watch, for sure. But if I crank that pixel density up even more, like when I look down, it just becomes a little bit of a slideshow. You don't notice it until you look down and start looking down, you know what I mean? Like right now, I think I could do better if I cranked that down to 1.5 instead of 1.7. But I am over the most densely populated area of Dubai right now, and it looks like I'm still at a solid 39, 40, maybe 38 every once in a while FPS, which is rather impressive. Because even on a 2D screen at 3840 by 1080, I come around this area, I think I've seen as low as 36 for a second. But in most cases, 50 to 60, you know. And then outside of this area, up above a little bit, you know, you're back to 90, 110, 120 FPS, depending on how many objects are rendered and whatnot. But again, VR is addictive, and it's impressive, and we all like it because it's the cool new flavor of the month, you know. I would say this is probably first gen VR, even though we've had a few, you know, before this. This is the first stuff that's just showing us how impressive this is going to be eventually, and how it could be, you know. But so far, like I said, I'm enjoying it. The Rift can be a pain in the ass some days. It does some stupid shit once in a while. But just getting this thing tweaked has been a bear, guys. You know, I've had a lot of people giving me suggestions and ideas, and then a lot of people asking me what I'm doing. So that's why I did this, basically. So one more time, before I end this video, I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to show you my settings again. here's where I'm at. Textures high, terrain textures high. Civilian traffic and water low. Again, you could turn things on and off all day long, and sometimes it doesn't seem like it makes a difference. So you'll have to play with some of these settings. Visibility range high. I've done high, ultra, and extreme, and I'm really not seeing a difference. But just to make myself feel better, I put it on high. You know what I mean? Heat blur off. Shadows flat only. That's subjective. People love their shadows, so you're going to have to play with that. Resolution changes nothing. I leave it at 3840 by 1080 because when I click it to start DCS with the DCS utility launcher, it'll go into my 3840 by 1080 mode for 2D. You could turn this down to the lowest setting altogether. It's not going to change what goes on VR. VR is based on what your headset's capable of, not what this resolution is. So don't ever get hung up on this. It makes no difference. Aspect ratio monitors, these all don't really have an effect. Resolution of cockpit displays, you can go down to 512. I prefer 1024. It makes the cockpit look nice. I don't think there's a huge difference between 1024 and 512 either, but just like everything we do when it comes to performance, we think the bigger number's better, and even if it isn't, we're still going to think the bigger numbers better. So is what it is. These two, MSAA 2X and SSAA 1.5, they're both on right now, and as you see, I'm doing pretty good. So you're going to have to play with that one too. A lot of people say, you can't have those turned on. That kills your performance. Well, I could turn them off, and I've got the same performance. So for me, I'm not seeing a difference. And then, clutter grass, you could turn this up or down all you want. And this is the one you can do on the fly, and I'm not seeing it make a difference to my image quality, so I'll just leave it down. Trees and visibility, 100%. Now I'm looking down, and I'm moving the slider. Oh, that does. Okay, so if you look down there, I'm going to do it again. I'm going to pull it back. So it just puts more trees in there. I don't think it helps my visibility, though, because I'm going to look down. Yeah, my visibility doesn't look any better. It's just changing the number of trees. I think what I'm seeing isn't changing in terms of better detail quality. So that pretty much tells you what's going on with that. And gamma, this is subjective. You're just going to have to play around with it. You want it lighter, you can have it lighter. You want to have no gamma, that's what it looks like, but none. I think that's shitty. I think 1.5 is decent. Maybe even 1.7. You know what? I'm going to go 1.7. I didn't realize till this very moment that I can move these sliders while I'm in the game. All this other stuff is grayed out. But this is what I'm using, guys. And then VR, it's not showing it right now, but you're going to if you're going to use the Oculus Tray Tool, you're going to turn your pixel density down to 0.5, which is the very lowest setting. And that's how you're going to run it. And that's it, man. That's what I'm doing. So I'm going to leave it at that. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, I'm always listening. As always, please subscribe to the channel. And thanks for watching. And until next time.